Let me ask you about Ukraine. President reversed his previous position and granted Ukraine permission to strike inside Russia with U.S. weapons. What prompted the switch, and are you worried that it's going to draw the U.S. into a direct conflict? That was the president's concern before.
We've been concerned about escalation since the very beginning of this war, and those concerns remain valid. The president has said he does not want to be responsible for starting World War III. We're not looking for a conflict with Russia, another nuclear armed power.
This is my video update on this Monday, midday, June the 3rd. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with an election update. We have another election update. Yesterday we had an update from India and South Africa, and today we have an election update from Mexico, where Claudia Sheinbaum will be the new president of Mexico. She is from the Morena party, which is the party of AMLO Obrador, and she was the governor of Mexico City, the Distrito Federal, Mexico DF, a former, I believe, a university professor and scientist. She became the governor of Mexico City, and now she is the president of Mexico, and she is very close to Obrador from the same political party. So I imagine that not much will change in Mexico with regards to Obrador's policies and Claudia Sheinbaum's policies. Anyway, that is the election in Mexico. She won a landslide victory, a huge margin of victory for Sheinbaum. And from the elections in Mexico, let's talk about the elections in the United States. And Trump, he gave an interview to some journalists the other day, and they asked Trump about the New York verdict and if he is prepared to go to prison. And Trump said, yeah, I'm okay with going to prison. If that's what it takes to protect the United States and the U.S. Constitution, he said, yeah, I'm okay with it. And why not? Why not? Because if Trump were to spend some time in prison or under house arrest, his support would only grow, and his lead over Biden in the polls will only grow. Because after the verdict on Thursday, the Trump campaign has raised $200 million. $200 million. That is incredible. In 4 days, $200 million. My God, that's a lot of money in just 4 days since the Thursday conviction. Just to provide some context, the Biden campaign raised a total of $51 million in all of April. In all of April, they raised $51 million, which is a huge amount. And the Trump campaign in 4 days raised $200 million. I believe in 24 hours, when the verdict came out, the Trump campaign raised $53 million in 24 hours. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And 73 million of the 200 million is in small donations, with 30% of the donations from the total 200 million were from first-time donors. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, if I have to go to prison for a couple of days, then so be it. I'll probably raise a billion. That's what Trump is saying, right? Put me in prison for 2 days and watch me raise $1 billion in donations. What are you doing around here, Mr. Bird? Oh boy. That bird is looking for food. That's what he's looking for. All right. So, what else? What else? Trump opened a TikTok page, the Trump campaign, at Real Donald Trump on TikTok. They posted one video from a mixed martial arts event with Dana White, and Trump's TikTok channel now has 3.2 million followers with one video. The Biden-Harris HQ TikTok page, which has a whole bunch of videos and has been on TikTok for a while now, has 341.5 thousand followers. What does that tell you? What do you think, bird? What kind of bird is that, by the way? I have no idea. Let me know in the comments down below. What kind of bird is that? Okay, so that's TikTok. 341,000 from Biden-Harris HQ compared to 3.4 million from at Real Donald Trump. And you know that Twitter X is coming soon. You know that Trump is going to open or restart his Twitter X page profile. There are rumors that Elon Musk is in talks to get involved in the Trump campaign. Those are the rumors. Boy, when Trump is back on Twitter X, look out. That is going to be big. There's going to be a whole lot of Trump derangement syndrome freak out going on when he starts posting on Twitter again, on Twitter X. So let's talk about the current president of the United States and the fact that Biden doesn't want World War III. This is according to John Kirby. This is what he told ABC News on Sunday. We've been concerned about escalation since the very beginning of this war, and those concerns remain valid. The president has said he does not want to be responsible for starting World War III. We're not looking for a conflict with Russia, another nuclear power. Kirby said Biden had understood all of the ramifications of allowing Kiev to use American weapons for counter-fire purposes. He reiterated that Ukrainians were only permitted to target bases, artillery positions, and other military sites that Russians were using to create some sort of buffer zones. The White House previously clarified that the ban on the use of the ATACMS missiles or long-range strikes inside of Russia has not changed. Russia, however, said that Kiev had already been using ATACMS and other long-range weapons to hit targets in Crimea, the Donbass, as well as the regions of Zaporozhye and Kherson. Kiev and its Western backers continue to view these recently incorporated Russian territories as Ukrainian land. So that was Kirby to ABC News. Biden does not want World War III. Biden understands the ramifications of going to war with Russia, a nuclear power. He understands the ramifications, Biden. So that's the policy shift that has taken place, which is really just the fact that the Biden White House has now openly, it's on record, openly giving permission to Ukraine to use U.S. weapons to attack Russian territory, specifically in the Kharkov direction. That's the policy shift, but no long-range missiles. No ATACMS and no long-range missiles, which is really nothing new. This is not a change in anything with regards to the actual conflict in Ukraine, because the Ukraine military, they have been using U.S. NATO weapons for the last 2 years to hit Russian territory, to hit Russian targets in pre-2014 Russia. This has been taking place over the past 2 years. The big difference is that before this policy shift, Kirby would get in front of the media in the White House and say that the U.S. discourages Ukraine from using U.S. weapons to hit Russian territory. Pre-2014 Russian territory, the U.S. is against Ukraine using American weapons to hit Russia. Now, Kirby can go in front of the media and say, we have given Ukraine permission to use our weapons, except for ATACMS long-range missiles. Everything else, Ukraine can use those weapons to hit Russian territory. Pre-2014 Russian territory, they have our permission. That's the policy shift. That's it. What this does is that it opens the door. It opens the door to further escalation. While it doesn't really change the actual fighting that's taking place, and that's the point that the Russian government is making. This is not really a change in the actual conflict, giving Ukraine permission to use weapons to hit our territory, which they have been doing over the past 2 years. What it does do is that it opens the door to the possibility of the Biden White House giving permission to Ukraine to use ATACMS to hit pre-2014 Russian territory. Of course, long-range missiles have been used to hit post-2014 Russian territory, Crimea. That's what's going on here. So that was Kirby speaking to ABC News. Dangerous stuff, very dangerous stuff, but no need to worry, because according to Kirby, the Biden White House understands the danger of going to war with a nuclear superpower. Biden understands the dangers involved. You know, the Biden White House, if they could escalate, they would. If they could give Ukraine permission, like right now, today, to use ATACMS missiles to hit Russian territory, they would. But right now, they can't. Or they're afraid to. Because Russia, they have told the collective West that using long-range missiles to hit pre-2014 Russian territory is our red line, and we will retaliate. So you're coming up to an election in in November 2024, and if you're the Biden White House, you're probably worried what a Russian retaliation would mean as you're entering an election cycle, as you're well into an election. But if you're the Biden White House, you're in an election, and the last thing you want to see happen is for Project Ukraine to crumble, like Afghanistan. So you have to figure out, how can we keep Project Ukraine going without it crumbling? How can we keep them fighting Russia and attacking the Russian military while not crossing Russia's red line? Because a Russia retaliation could be disastrous for us. And all of this is in the context of an election. If there was no election, then there's no doubt about it that the Biden White House would be escalating with Russia full speed ahead. But it's that election that is weighing on the Biden White House and the policy choices that they have to make with regards to Project Ukraine. So that's what they're trying to navigate. That's what they're trying to figure out. How can we continue this conflict? How can we continue the attacks on Russia? How can we make sure that Elensky doesn't collapse, while at the same time not crossing Russia's red line? Meanwhile, the Europeans, they're freaking out because they understand that Ukraine has lost this war, and this is a disaster for the EU, for NATO, and for the Europeans, and they understand that without the United States, without a full commitment from the United States, they have zero chance to keep Ukraine afloat and to keep Project Ukraine going. So they're doing everything they can to make sure that the United States is still escalating in Ukraine and is still committed to Project Ukraine. That's where we are at the moment. So far, it does look like the Russian red line warnings are working so far. But as I said, the door has been open to further escalation and to attackums hitting Russian territory, pre-2014 Russian territory. So let's now talk about Elensky. Elensky is traveling. He's traveling. He's on tour. And he was just in Sweden. He then went to Singapore. And now Elensky is in the Philippines, meeting with Marcos Jr. And soon he's going to go to Paris, actually, to France, to meet with Macron. He's going to be there in a couple of days. And Elensky is on the run, man on the run. You know that when Elensky travels, you know that things are really bad in Kiev. Things are really, really bad. What is he doing in the Philippines? Come on, man. What is he doing in the Philippines? Meeting with Marcos Jr., who many say is the next Elensky. A lot of people say he's next in line to be used by the United States against China. Anyway, he met with Marcos, and Elensky said that Ukraine is very interested in opening an embassy in the Philippines. Ukraine doesn't have an embassy in the Philippines, so it looks like they're going to have an embassy in the Philippines very soon. And Elensky also told Marcos that he would appreciate it if the Philippines would provide, what did Elensky say, would provide psychologists and psychiatrists for the Ukraine military, something like that. That is what he told Marcos Jr. What is he doing in the Philippines, man? He is basically, you know what Elensky is doing? He's basically just going anywhere he can until he can make it to France for the Normandy event. I think that's what's taking place in France from the 4th to the 6th or something like that. That's basically what Elensky is trying to do. He's trying to avoid going back to Kiev. So whatever country will take him and whatever leader will meet with him, he's going there until he can get to June 4th or June 5th, when he can get to France. And I think you have the G7 either before France. So maybe he's going to go to Italy for the G7, and then he goes to France, or the G7 is after France. I'm not sure the order of the events. But he's just trying to buy his time outside of Kiev till he can get to those events. So he goes to the Philippines. Hey, Marcos Jr., can I hang out with you for a couple of days? And Marcos Jr. is like, yeah, sure. Or more like Elensky told the Biden White House, I don't want to go back to Kiev. Can you find me a country that will meet with me? And the Biden White House is like, I don't know. There's not many people that want the Elensky curse coming their way. But but let's see. Let's see. How about the Philippines? We'll call up Marcos Jr. and we'll get him to meet with you for a couple of days. Oh, boy. So that's Elensky. He's traveling. He is traveling. And he did an interview with The Guardian. And we have more of that interview coming out from The Guardian, being published by The Guardian. And in the interview, Elensky called Trump a loser. A loser. Or a potential loser, I think, to be more accurate. A potential loser. So let's see. He called Biden not very strong. That's what he said a couple of days ago when he was in Spain. He said Biden is not very strong. If he doesn't show up to the Swiss peace event, the peace event, then he's not very strong. So he calls Biden not very strong. In Singapore, he said that that China is a puppet of Putin. He said China's trying to sabotage my peace event, and they are a puppet of Putin. They Putin puppet this China. They try sabotage my peace event. How dare they sabotage my peace event in Switzerland? Putin puppet of the Putin, this China. So Biden not very strong. China is a tool of Putin or a puppet of Putin, and now Trump is a potential loser. This Trump guy, he potential loser. Oh boy, making friends, that Elensky, making friends. Let's see what Elensky said here. Does he want to be a loser president later? This is what he was asked when he was asked by The Guardian about Trump's statements that he has made about getting a ceasefire in 24 days. If he were to become president, the war in Ukraine would end. He would negotiate a ceasefire in 24 days. So The Guardian asked Elensky about these statements from Trump. And Elensky said, does he want to be a loser president later? Let's imagine what happens if Trump becomes president and decides to end the war at the expense of Ukraine. Let's imagine that after this, Putin will go further. Then this new U.S. president will be seen as weak. And this does not speak merely of his personality, but of the U.S. government. They will be perceived as weak, Elensky said. Making friends. Making friends, that Elensky. He is a really good diplomat, I must say. That Elensky. This Trump, he potential loser. He potential loser. Let's imagine what happened, Guardian. Let's imagine, Guardian, what happened if Trump become president and decide to end war at my expense. Let's imagine after this ceasefire that this Trump man negotiate, Putin will conquer more of Europe. He will conquer all of Europe. And then this Putin, he go to US and he conquered America. Trust me, Guardian, I know what I talk about. And many people will make fun of Trump as Putin conquered America, Guardian, as Putin conquered New York City, and then Putin conquered what else? He conquered Chicago, and then Putin, he conquered, what other city he conquered? He conquered big state of Texas, and then he conquered this very sunny state, this state where I buy many homes, Miami, what is this state called? Florida. He conquered Florida, then everyone will make fun of Trump because they will say, you see Trump, Putin now conquering our country because you don't support me, Guardian. Is this right, Podolyak? Yes, Mr. President, this is right. You see, even Podolyak agree with me, Guardian. Trump loser. He loser. He potential loser. Man. So at the Shangri-La Dialogue Summit that took place in Singapore, the reports are that the Chinese delegation, they did everything to avoid Elensky. They did everything to make sure they did not run into Elensky and didn't have to talk to Elensky. They didn't want to see him. They didn't want to hear him. They did everything they could to avoid Elensky. This is from the Global Times. Alinsky attends Shangri-La dialogue. Asian states should avoid similar confrontation trap. Alinsky's participation in the dialogue seems more like a Western attempt to involve Asian countries in the Ukrainian crisis. Observers said Asian countries should see Ukraine as a cautionary tale, they said. So basically what the Global Times is saying, which I imagine is the Chinese government line on Elensky attending the Shangri-La Dialogue Summit, is that the U.S., they sent Elensky to Singapore in order to try and get countries in Asia to support Elensky and to support Ukraine and to attend, I imagine, to attend the Swiss Peace Summit. And that's why they sent Elensky to Singapore. Otherwise, what was he doing there? He has no reason to be there. While the Chinese, they're saying, you know what? Asian states, look at Elensky and look at him as a cautionary tale. Don't become the next Project Ukraine. Look at this man walking around Singapore, walking around this conference. Don't become the next Project Ukraine. Cautionary tale, Elensky curse. That is what the Global Times is reporting. By the way, it looks like MBS and Saudi Arabia will not be attending the Switzerland Peace Summit. Or at least MBS will not be attending the Switzerland Peace Summit. Those are the latest reports. So Elensky went to Saudi Arabia and he tried to convince MBS to attend, and it looks like MBS is saying, nope, not interested. Not interested in this performance theater sham peace summit that Switzerland is hosting. So let's do one more story before we get into our clown world. And let's talk very quickly about the news that Greece has sent an F16 pilot to Ukraine to train Ukrainian pilots. One F16 pilot, a Greek F16 pilot, according to Greek alternative media, not mainstream media. Mainstream media is not reporting this, but all of the alternative Greek media sites are reporting that one Greek pilot is in Ukraine training Ukrainian pilots. And the alternative media in Greece, they're saying that this is very strange. They haven't quite understood what this pilot is doing in Ukraine. Because usually the Greek pilots, they go to Romania, or they've been in Romania training the Ukrainian pilots in the F16 training program. So they haven't quite figured out what this one pilot is doing in Ukraine or what this one pilot could possibly accomplish in Ukraine. That's the update from Greece on this one Greek pilot in Ukraine. I look at this as Europe just doing whatever it can to try and keep the escalation in Ukraine going. That's how I look at this. So my feeling is that, my hunch is that the Greek government, Mitsotakis, someone in the U.S. deep state, maybe neocon, pro-Ukraine escalation, maybe in the Department of State, which is very much pro-Ukraine escalation, someone in Brussels, in Europe, they probably told Greece, look, let's send some pilots to Ukraine. act as a kind of tripwire so we can continue to escalate. And sending a bunch of pilots would be very unpopular in Greece, like very unpopular for the Mitsotakis government. So maybe they said, okay, we'll send one pilot and just try to keep it on the down low. Something like that happened because, one pilot doesn't really do much, does it? One pilot in Ukraine. Seems kind of meaningless. I think that the Greek government worked out some sort of deal and said, okay, we'll send one pilot, fine, but no more than that, just one pilot. And let's not make a big fuss out of it. Anyway, that's the story there. Greek pilots are very good. I will say that. They are very good, and they have a lot of experience dealing with the Turkish pilots. So they do have a lot of experience in the air and dealing with the Turkish pilots that cross over into Greek airspace. That happens very often, and we do have very good pilots. This is true, but the media, the alternative media here, is saying that most of the Greek pilots are in Romania and they're training the Ukrainian pilots through this Collective West F16 program. Let's do some clown worlds and we will wrap this video up. And the first clown world is an update on the North Korea trash balloons. I talked about this in my video yesterday, and I didn't understand why North Korea sent balloons filled with trash into South Korea. 600 balloons filled with trash and poop into South Korea. The reason they did this was because South Korea, they send balloons into North Korea with propaganda and flyers in those balloons. And it looks like North Korea is getting sick of these balloons with propaganda and flyers entering their country. And so they said, enough. You send balloons with flyers in them, we're going to send balloons with trash. And that is what they did. So that's an update on the balloon situation from yesterday. The UK Telegraph, they are putting out articles over the next 7 days from international commentators who are going to imagine the consequences of a Russian victory. What if Putin wins? Asks the Telegraph. For the next 7 days, the Telegraph is running a series of exclusive essays from international commentators imagining the consequences if Russia were successful in its war. The essays so far are listed at the bottom of this article. Today, Dr. Ivana Stradner considers what Putin's next European conquest would be after seizing Ukraine. And this article from Dr. Ivana Stradner is Putin's next conquests are already in his sights. If Kiev fails, the Baltics, Moldova, and Balkans are at risk, not just from tanks, but from hybrid warfare, which wouldn't break Article 5. So over the next 7 days, the Telegraph is going to run imaginary fiction essays from Putin deranged commentators asking the question, what if Russia wins? What if Russia wins? They're still delusional about the Russian victory. They still haven't accepted the Russian victory, which is coming. But what if Russia wins? So the articles are going to talk about that. Hybrid warfare, conquering the Baltics, of course, conquering Eurasia. That's what the Sun said yesterday. Vlad's conquest. He's going to conquer Eurasia. He's going to conquer Armenia and Georgia. Moldova. Russia's going to definitely conquer Moldova. Even the Balkans are in play. Putin is going to to conquer the Balkans, Serbia. Putin's going to take over Serbia and Croatia and what else? What else is Putin going to take over? Bulgaria, Albania. Maybe he's even going to make his way to Greece. Who knows? Who knows how far Putin will go? Yeah, so that's gonna be running on the Telegraph over the next 7 days. And finally, let's do one more clown world, and this has to do with Ursula Vanderlay's campaign video that she put out the other day. I don't understand why she's putting out a campaign video. I don't understand what she's campaigning for, because the position is appointed, but she's also pretending that she's running in some sort of an election campaign or something like that, and she put out a campaign video. And there was some interesting music which was overlaid on top of this campaign video of the Star Wars soundtrack. Check it out on Twitter, check it out on Telegram, it's pretty funny. But I imagine that she does these videos, that Ursula does these videos, so that she can create a budget, a fund for the EU Commission appointment. They brand it as an election, and then they create a fund and a budget, and then they can justify money going to this fund and this budget. That's why she does it, even though it's an appointed position. That's the video, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. And go to the Duran shop, 15% off. Use the code GetReady15. Take care.